Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know some people are just joining, so just know we'll take a few minutes here to make sure that nobody gets caught in Zoom Bardo, aka the waiting room. Normally I would play music, but when I went to share my audio, it told me I had to do some sort of Zoom reboot, and I was like, not going to do that right now. I'm going to let everybody in instead. So just welcome yourself into the space and take a moment. Maybe you had plenty of time to get yourself ready for this call. Maybe you feel very relaxed. Maybe you have your notebook and your water or your tea. Maybe you're sitting in just the right chair with just the right cushion. Or maybe you heard one of those and you thought, ooh, I would love to go run and get a cup of water. I would love to go grab a pillow. I would love to shift my space a little bit, or light a candle, or finish eating my food and come on camera, which is certainly never an obligation, but I always do love to see faces when I get to see faces. So just know that we have a minute or two to allow people to arrive, and that you too, even though you have you have arrived on the Zoom, you also have a little bit of time to arrive, to gather yourself, to perhaps get a pen and paper if you'd like to have them, or a cup of water. Maybe you were getting a cup of water and you left it in the kitchen, and you can run and grab that in the next minute or two. And as we begin, I'm going to begin by, we'll take a little time to drop into the space, and then I'll begin with some talking, and then I'll open up the space for your voices, your shares, your questions, your inquiries. Um, but just a reminder as we begin that there is absolutely never any obligation to be on camera. If you're going to bring your voice into the space, I do ask that you join on camera, just because it's more challenging when we can't see you. But if you're off camera now for some reason and then you want to join, you can join. If you feel like you need to go off at some point, that's totally fine. But I do want to say that I think in the time of Zoom, we've gotten accustomed to, like, oh, if I'm going to move, I go off camera. And certainly if you're carrying your computer and we're all going to get seasick, it's just kind of nice to do that. But I think we've lost the idea that we're allowed to be humans together, and that you might just be shifting in your space a little bit, or you might not be available to look directly at the screen the whole time. And that doesn't mean that you can't be on camera. You can absolutely be totally with us and fully present, and allow your eyes to close, or take your gaze off the screen, or attend to something to this side or this side, and just know that that's welcome in this space. So whether it feels best to you to begin and dropping in to allow your eyes to close, or to shift your gaze off the screen, or perhaps you just allow your gaze to be a little bit more downcast towards the desk or the floor or whatever's in front of you. Sometimes it feels really good to have your eyes still a little bit open, but resting on something that feels beautiful or nourishing in your space. Whatever allows you to bring your attention a little bit more inward than outward. With no strain, no forcing, nothing you need to push away, but just gently inviting, drawing and inviting your attention a little bit. It's almost like gathering your attention from the outside in, and using your own breath more as a tool than something to shape and change, but your attention on your own breath as a place to gather your attention from the outside in. No particular way that you need to breathe. but actually noticing with your own attention, your own awareness, noticing what your inhalation feels like in your body, what your exhalation feels like in your body. And over the next couple of inhales and exhales, full breath cycles, just allowing all the parts of you to be gathered a little bit more into the place where your physical body is. Your emotional body, your energetic body, your mental body, your thoughts, your feelings, your awareness, just gathering a little bit more into the place where your physical body is. Feeling your own seat in a chair or a couch, or if you're standing, perhaps it's your feet on the floor or the earth. And with your next exhalation, feeling almost as though you become heavier, heavier in your seat or heavier in your feet. And as you become heavier in the spot where you actually are, then take this next moment just to gently feel your own spine and back body and feel into the space behind you. And then at your own pace, with an inhalation, begin to gently open your eyes. Perhaps it feels best to allow your eyes to open off the screen first and take in the light and the space around you. And again, at your own pace, bringing your attention and bringing yourself into the space of the group, which I'll remind you does not always mean your eyes have to be glued on the screen. That's not the way that you prove you're paying attention to me or to anyone else. And even as you join the space of the group with your attention or your awareness, and sometimes also your gaze in this space, take a moment and still gently feel your own spine and back body. Seeing if you can feel gently the space behind you. So once again, I'll say welcome. Perhaps more of you is here available to be welcomed as you gather yourself together. And the topic today is embodied leadership. So I have a bunch of things that I wrote down ahead of time, and then doing that, I thought, well, this is it. This is the essence, actually, of where we begin with embodied leadership is, are we here? How much of us is actually here and available in the space where we are? And this is not a moral or a value judgment, but how much of us is somewhere else with our thoughts or our feelings or our attention? And do we even know where that is? So sometimes finding out it's not, I'm going to just go off script here. This isn't what I was going to talk about at all. But to discover, oh, there were parts of me, or perhaps even large parts of me that were somewhere else. It's not then suddenly, oh no, that's bad and wrong, and I'm not embodied, and I need to fix that and yank myself all into one place. But first, maybe even to discover, oh, where were those parts of me? Was it my thoughts? Were my thoughts both here and also there and in this place that's the future, but also another physical location? Was it some part of my feeling body that was sensing out beyond the space I am or to another person that I'm in relationship with or thinking about? And we can make a choice. It's not bad and wrong to be feeling out into another person or to be thinking into another place, but to have our awareness. Oh, I'm actually aware that that's what's happening. I'm aware that that's where I am. I'm aware the parts of me that are not here. I'm aware where they are. And to even begin to be able to, I want to say choose, but I also want to say play with that. So something like this, these are the parts that often get missed. They're very simple. They sometimes seem boring. I do them repetitively in my spaces. Um, and even I have these thoughts like, well, I should come up with something new. Oh, people have already done this. Oh, what if people get bored? And it's the reminder, oh, actually, pretty much all of us need this on a regular basis. I need this on a regular basis. Most of us need someone else also to guide us in these ways on a regular basis because we're all guiding ourselves a lot. So, with that said, I'll go a little bit more into what I want to say about embodied leadership. And I want to acknowledge right at the outset, this is in some ways the tip of the iceberg. So much of this is about practice, and it is why in spaces, and there's plenty of spaces to do this, but I would say in the spaces that I offer around this, fierce grace, ongoing containers, we then get to dive into this and practice it in a bespoke, if you will, a unique and individualized way. What does this actually mean in your life? I'm glad. I'm glad it's making somebody laugh. So I think a lot of this, many of you would say, oh, this isn't necessarily news, right? There's pieces of this. So you're going to say, yes, I know this, right? And some of it is reminding. So this idea of that it's less about what we do or say and more about who we be. However, right, there's always tension points and there's always nuance. Who we be is shown sometimes by what we do and what we say. But deeper than what we do and what we say, it is felt who we're being. So it's felt in the transmission of our being. And then what we do and what we say is also important. So I never want to make this binary. And I think that's often what happens in our minds, right? It's being versus doing, rather than, okay, there is this deeper level of the transmission through my being. And yes, that is actually displayed through what I do and what I say. But I can be saying one thing and you can be feeling another, right? You can be feeling a transmission. And this happens a lot, right? We call it cognitive dissonance, but it's really sensory dissonance. That what we're hearing or what we're seeing, sometimes what we're hearing is different than what we're seeing, or what we're hearing is different than what we're experiencing or feeling. So this idea of what's felt as a transmission, then I want to speak about what does transmission mean? Again, knowing this is all the tip of the iceberg, but I want to land these ideas at least a little bit. And I think often the idea of transmission, or what is your transmission, or what do you want to transmit, or what are you here to transmit, still gets caught up in what are we doing? And so I would say that's the first. I would talk about three. I often talk about them like three stool legs, and we lean on the first one a lot. But if you have a three-legged stool and one of them is much taller, or one of them is much shorter, or one of them is missing completely, right? You have a very wonky stool. And the first one is the one that gets talked about a lot more, which is like, what am I projecting? And yes, that is somewhat through our being, but often we think about it like, oh, what am I saying? What am I teaching? What am I doing? What is it that I'm somehow taking and projecting to others? And that's one layer. What am I offering, right? That's one layer of transmission, or one of the stool legs, if you will. The other, I would say, what is it that other people feel around you, no matter what? What is it that other people actually experience around you? Not just when you get them in your container, when you get to talk to them, when you get to say what you think, believe, and feel, when you get to teach, when you get to project, but when you walk in a room, when you stand near people, when you're with people without necessarily being the one talking, what is it that other people, and I say feel, I mean that at a sensory level. What is it that they sense around you? What experience do they have around you? That is a transmission. And then the third one is that you also need to be experiencing it. So we often make, again, the transmission comes as like the offer or the project, that it's all from here out. And this is where I'll often say, what you have embodied is what you'll transmit. But we think of that again, like, oh, I need to be practicing perfectly so that that's what transmits. It's more like, oh, if what I want to transmit is peace and I am filled with agitation, even if I have learned tools to make myself appear calm, even if I kind of make people around me feel calm, even if I talk about peace, but I'm filled with agitation, then one of those stool legs is really wonky. And this is a little bit weaving into the next piece, but I want to say that, say, to get from agitation to peace isn't necessarily always the linear path we think it is, or, oh, I need to become more peaceful inside myself. Sometimes we need actually to become like riotous so that we feel inner peace. Sometimes there are loud things we need to say in order to feel inner peace. So it's less about, uh, am I am I doing the things I think I should be doing externally so that I feel that internally, but what truly is needed to cultivate that I have this experience internally? What is needed to cultivate that others have this experience around me? And then there's also the projection of it, for sure. So that bleeds into this piece. It's not exactly, but the first layer I would say is always getting right with reality. So I would assert that we're all transmitting all the time. All the time. There is no, do I have a transmission? Am I a transmission? It's, what am I transmitting? What already is. And sometimes we know, and sometimes it's important to ask the people around us. Even before we get to what do I want my transmission to be? Right? And if we're talking about embodied leadership, and this is not just as a leader, as a teacher, as a coach, as a guide, this is as a human, as a friend, as a lover, as a parent, all of the like human being a leader in the world, this transmission, we're all offering a transmission all the time. And that first layer, just like I talked about in terms of where we are, where is our energy, where is our attention, where is our energetic body, our emotional body, our mental body, getting right with reality being, oh, do I know first where it is without making that wrong? Am I aware what my transmission is without any judgment or more as an observation? Am I aware of my own internal state and what I'm experiencing in the world? Am I aware of what other people experience around me? And then there is this layer of what do I want to be transmitting? And I do want to say here, I mean, for simplicity, I'm talking about it like it's one thing. And of course, there's multiple layers, and it might shift based on context, might shift based on where we are. There's probably some layers of transmission that are woven through no matter what. But there might be pieces that shift based on who we're with, where we are, context, etc. But even engaging the question of what do I want to be transmitting? What is it that I want to offer with my being to the world? Little side note I'm going to put into here is that it's never authenticity. Authenticity is a descriptor about whether what we're transmitting is aligned with who we are. So dig deeper. If that's what you think you want to transmit, dig deeper to what would make it authentic? What is aligned with the truth of my being? So what do I want to offer and project? What do I want other people to feel, experience around me? And what is it that I want to feel inside myself? And I would say, because these just aren't linear, right? It's not like the whole island A to island B and what's the line between the two. So it's not so much the distance between what am I transmitting and what do I want to be transmitting, but really looking at what is this feeling, sense, experience that I want to offer as my transmission, that I want to be in the world. And then again, without any value judgment around it, really curiosity, what would need to happen in order for me to cultivate that? So it's less of a state of, am I that or am I not that? Or if I'm not that, how do I get to that? Like it's a static state. And that somehow it's a noun, it's a place, it's rigid or static. But as an ongoing, probably lifetime practice of cultivation. What is needed in order to cultivate that in myself? What is needed in order to cultivate that this is the experience that other people have around me? What is needed to cultivate that? So just like a tiny little, it's not even really a practice, but a little bit different than just thoughts in this moment. Just take a moment. And again, you can do this with your eyes open or closed. You can take your gaze off the screen. But I heard this inquiry on a podcast called The Emerald. I was walking down the path. I remember exactly where I was, and it stopped me in my tracks. I burst into tears and I had to stop exactly where I was. And what the inquiry was um, if the state of your heart in this moment was expanded to become the state of the world, then what then is the state of the world? And so again, more as an observation with no judgment, moral judgment on this, but to just check in, well, what actually is the state of my heart right now? And if the state of my heart were expanded to become the state of the world, what then is the state of the world? Take another breath cycle or two into whatever that experience is for you right now. And for me, what that becomes is less, oh, do I like the state of my heart? Is this the state I would want for the world? I mean, that's part of the inquiry, but it really becomes then what might be needed to cultivate a state in my heart that I would want to expand out to become the state of the world. And I would say that's only one thread or one layer of what we might talk about in transmission, but that's one way to approach it. If the state of my body or the state of my relationship with my body were to be expanded out and become the state of the world, then what is the state of the world? If the state of my mind were to be expanded out to become the state of the world, what then is the state of the world, right? These are all layers, and they're all, I think of them in some way more like threads, because it's like an infinite tapestry, right? They're all connected, they're all important, and they're slightly unique.